Hey everybody, thanks for joining. Today I'm going to be talking about Pilates and Anthropometry. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Basically, it's the study of body proportions, right? And if we look at that relationship in how Joe taught what he taught, it's hi Susan, hi, it's Aragon Pilates and Michelle Lee. Hi. Looking at body proportions. I did a post about a year ago, and a memory came up, and I shared it again. And so there's some text there if you want to go through it on my personal account, Sean Gallagher 3262 on Instagram and Facebook, I believe too. So either one. So let's talk about that. So what is our job, right? Our job is working with people, and the reality is everybody is much different than everybody else in a lot of different ways. Right? We have height, width, depth, and arms and legs and torso and head and neck, and they're all different sizes and shapes, and they have different relationships. They also have bends and twists and different things. So there is no perfect body. And, so trying to find balance is really a fallacy. And I teach that all the time. And part of that is because, when you look in the anatomy books and we look at the pictures that are there today, all the pictures are based on the anatomical position. And the anatomical position is a position that was standardized so that around the world when people talk about anatomy, they basically are talking the same language, right, because of the position. And so when people learn anatomy, they tend to want to get everybody back into that perfect position. The problem is nobody has that position. Well, maybe 0.0001% or something. There's probably some out there, but 99.999% of the people who walk through your door do not have a skeleton and a muscular system and a body that looks like it does in most anatomy textbooks today. And so trying to make somebody change to that is really a fallacy, and it's not really doable. And matter of fact, if you try to force that, right, and push that, you're basically doing abnormal things, and that's not the way Joe, really wanted to work with his system. And so, saying that, there is still a lot that we can do to change bodies to a certain degree, right? And that's much more the muscular system, right? And the muscular system is what controls the skeletal system, right? So, if the skeleton has twists and bends, you have bow legs, we're not going to change the bow leg, right? Maybe in 20 years of constant, or years of constant stress, you could do that, possibly. If you put a brace on a long leg, right, let's say the femur, or not leg, bone, the femur or the humerus, and you put a brace on it, and you put a torque on it, you twist it and slowly twist it, and there's a bend. Over time, it will straighten, or if it's straight, it'll start to bend. But that takes months to years, and that's constant, right? And in Pilates, how often do we see somebody? 2, 3, okay, 5 times. Even if they come 7 days a week for an hour, that's not constant. So, you may get, over decades, you may get some changes, but it's not going to happen anytime fast. But what can we change? We can change the muscular system, the muscular organs, right? And the relationship to them. It's the myofascial, really, because the muscle, every muscle fiber has a fascial surrounding, and all those fascial surroundings come down at the end, and they become your tendon, which attaches to the bone. And then you also have ligaments that attach to the bones. And, if you stress connective tissue for a very long time, it will also change faster than bone will, for sure, but it still takes months And even with Pilates, if you're only doing it once or twice a week, unless you're teaching them to practice their Pilates in life and they start to really move differently, consistently, it's not going to happen anytime fast as well. All right, but we can make changes. And the reality is, Joe's system has is very what's the word I'm looking for? Very static in a sense, right? The reformer, that carriage doesn't change, right? Once somebody's on it, I mean, like he did make a junior reformer that went from 80 to 86, but it wasn't like you did that while you're working out. You set it at 80 or set it at 86. Because those are the two sizes that he had in his studio, so you could make it for regular, for most people, and then for a tall person you would have an 86. All right, so that's sort of that, and then you have what? You have 4 springs that are adjustable, 1, 2, 3, 4, or none, and you have 3 gears. So there is adjustability, right? Depending on the size, the function, and the relationship of the person. So there is adaptability, but not a whole lot, and it's not something that we change that often. All right, especially when we look at the length, right? When somebody gets on a reformer, we're not going from 80-inch to 86 to 86 to 89. We don't do that. At least Joe never did it, and Ramona never did, and I don't teach it. Maybe somebody with social media, anything's possible today, but that's not really how the system is designed to be worked. And even with that, there's a set order and there's a set spring tension. And that's there for a reason as well, because that spring tension, again, and this is for most people, right? There's always a bell curve, and on either end there are extremes, and when we get to extremes, we have to modify and adjust for sure. That's part of it. But that's also understanding that. So when you have a very short person, a very tall person, you modify. When you have very weak or very strong, very tight, very flexible. Again, what do you have to do? You have to modify. It's a lot about modifications. So when we're looking at those modifications, what is it that we have to do, right? We have to adjust the gears and the springs at those end ranges, not by much, either by 1 gear or usually by 1 spring, not a whole lot more than that, okay? And that's partly because when you get on the apparatus, right, you are basically closing a system. So now you and the machine is called the machine. It was apparatus, machine. Ramana called it both. Joe called it both. So there is, definitely that's part of one of the things that it's been called before. So when you get on that, though, it becomes a closed system, right? So the machine does what it does, and it's not variable. What's variable? The body and the muscular system. So the strength and the flexibility, right, can change over time with use, right? When you stress the system changes when you're looking at the human body. And again, when I talk about stress, it's not just the muscular, right? It's the cardiovascular, the heart, the lungs, the connective tissues, the muscles, the organs, everything changes in relationship to the stresses put on them. And when we exercise, that's a certain amount of stress. And that's normal, right? Life and gravity is working against stress. So it's something that we have to work with and think about and use all the time. So when we're looking at that process, right, what do we have to do? We then have to understand that Joe's, spring setting was there as a balance between the stability and the mobility, right? And that understanding of that, right? So when we're looking at the body shapes and the body sizes, right? What do we have to do? That's why there's pads. That's why there's boxes. There's things that we can do also that we can modify for the body position so that we can still get them, the best balance within the imbalance is what I always teach, right? And it's one of my, key terms that I use all the time. And how do what's that mean? Well, the part of that process is to do what? To work each individual for their particular needs in relationship to the apparatus that changes some, but not a whole lot. And if you change it too far, it's not going to provide you with the kind of workout that you're designed to do, that Joe designed to make the changes that he claimed. And if you want to do that, that's something that you're going to have to think about, right? You know, if you're saying, well, Pilates does this, 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 and this, right? All these different things, and it's what Joe said, well, then you have to practice what Joe practiced on the apparatus that he practiced it on, to really get those changes, because if you do other things, there's still going to be changes, but is it going to be the same? And, you know, the difference is Joe spent 35, 40 years, you know, experimenting and working it with his body and his students and clients' bodies, and he saw the changes happening. And that's what his, you know, when you read what he wrote, those are his claims. He says, I know that this works because I've used it and I've seen it happen. And that, you know, so it was, you know, his kind of research was, you know, more clinical. And clinical then is not like clinical today, because I've had people, you know, give me a hard time about that. And, you know, the difference was he did it in the clinic, right? And what he saw and what he did, that's what he studied. Now, when you have to do clinical research, there's a whole nother, you know, way of doing things that you have to record and do all types of different things to make it a valid type of research. That wasn't really done back then. And so he did what was considered clinical. And so, but that's what he did. And was it 100% accurate? Doubt it, right? You know, but that's what his claims were. So if you're going to do the work and make those claims, that's something you have to think about as well. All right. So those are the things that I think when you look at, you know, the anthropometry, you know, and how that works, you know, the study of body proportions and things like that, we are practitioners of that. We look at body every day. They're all different proportions, and we have to understand, how do we use the apparatus with that body, with those proportions, in the way that Joe wanted it done. And again, the basic foundation is there's a bell curve, and on either end you're going to modify. But for, I'd say, 70-80% of people walk through your door, there's no need to modify, because the order, the apparatus, and the spring setting has been set for a very long time, and it works. And it does the job it's supposed to do, right? And so if you're looking to get those types of changes, that's something that you need to think about, right? And again, nowadays, you know, there's 50 million trainings out there. I don't know what they're teaching. I don't know if they're teaching the same order, they're teaching the same springs. Do they use the same springs? You know, are they different springs? Are there different lengths? You know, all these different things that they're doing with the apparatus today, it's definitely going to change. You change the apparatus, it changes how it affects the body, because it's still a closed system. If you get on a, you know, apparatus that's another reformer, and it's still closed, but now the proportions and everything are different, so it's going to affect the body differently, because the body has to work out on that closed system, and the lengths are different. So if the lengths are different, the tensions are different, the stresses are different, you're going to have different changes in the body related to the stresses. You know, and again, remember, there's stress is always there, and there are good stress and there's bad stress. So, you know, and I hate to say it, but quite a few things that I see on social media today where people are just posting stuff to get, you know, the hits and the likes, that is not necessarily what I consider good stress. And I think if you repeat it over and over again over time, it would be detrimental in the long run. There's a lot of exercise that people do that, you know, every exercise is good no matter what kind you do, usually, right? It's going to change the body, change the cardiovascular, changes the breathing, changes the heart rate. But can you do it for a lifetime, right? Can you do something for a lifetime? Are you going to want to do it for a lifetime? And I've seen people do Pilates, you know, Joe's way for decades, you know, they're like the rest of their lives, you know. And when they do that, it's maintenance. And it's something that they do because you can always challenge somebody in relationship to their particular needs and wants, right? You know, to be able to provide them with a workout that they can do over and over and over again that's similar, but specific for their particular body types and their proportions and their relationships, and you can then do that, because it's not just the reformer, right? We have all the other apparatus, and it's always challenging. So that's the other thing to think about as well. Okay? All right, so that's my AMAP today. That post came up, and I thought it was, I've been keep thinking about it all the time. Those relationships and how those things work, and trying to figure out how Pilates works so well. So you can check my post out, and if you know anybody you think would be interested in this, you can tell them to check out our YouTube channel, the Pilates Source YouTube channel. There's a playlist for just AMAP Fridays, and they're all on here. I usually put it on within a couple days. So if you liked it, you can rewatch it. If you have people you think would want to watch it, send them to there and subscribe, and you'll get it every week. All right. Thanks for joining. And again, every Tuesday, I have class at 12:30. I have my Balanceology class, which is not Pilates. It's about balance work. So if you're interested, come and join me. And then 1 o'clock on Tuesdays, I also then teach the resistor poster workout, which is arm springs and leg springs. And you don't need a resistor. If you have a Cadillac or a wall unit, you can also use those, because you have to be able to have the springs high and the springs low for arm and leg springs. So something that you can do if you'd like to join in. And that's, if you go to my LinkedIn page, which is linktree/Sean.Gallagher, you can sign up there. Okay? Thanks, everybody, and I hope everybody, if you're in the U.S., had a great Thanksgiving, and if not, I hope you all had a great Thursday. I'll see you next week. Let me see, is that correct? I may not be doing next week, because next weekend I am in... No, I'm not going to be able to do next week. Next week I'm up in Canada teaching Ramana tape on the Cadillac. No, not the Cadillac, the guillotine. So I'll be doing the guillotine Ramana tape, and some of archival stuff as well next week. So I'll be able to do that. Okay, so I'll see you all next time. All right, thanks for joining.